Welcome to Basic and Bookish Podcast, the perfect place to crash out over our favorite books and connect with readers just like you. I'm Kinsey.
And I'm Karly.
Today we're bringing the heat because this episode is all about spice. We'll be discussing our spice rating scales and the spiciest books we've ever read. You can find the timestamps for each section down in the show notes.
There are mild out-of-context spoilers in this episode. We will be talking about a bunch of different books today and do our best to keep it spoiler-free, but obviously saving space for the spicy bits.
Gotta hold some space for that. Due to the nature of these books, this podcast is obviously rated R in content and language. If you'd like to skip the ads and have access to full video formats, it's available now on Patreon. That link can also be found in our show notes.
Now, prepare to join the chaos. Honestly, we blame the ADHD. If you're completely new here, we probably need to explain what spice is. You see, when two horned dogs love each other very much. Thank you for scripting this for me, Kinsey.
You're so welcome.
They decide to challenge each other to a wrestling match, and it gets hot, very hot, spicy hot.
Sex. She's talking about sex.
Okay. I love that I let you have free reign with this one.
So I am dying to know what your spice scale is, Karly, because I, for one, am very bad at it. I've never formally made my own scale, and I know everyone has their own ratings for what you think is spicy. So I'm curious, how do you rate your spicy books?
Okay, so I generally don't just give like a flat spice rating for books for a reason, and I think that's because people tend to rate spice one very differently, and a lot of people think about one aspect when they're rating spice, and each person thinks about a different aspect when they give a spice rating. And so I think it's kind of hard because it's not necessarily comprehensive when you just hear a 1 through 5 spice rating. So it's kind of hard. And I think people tend to focus on different things when they're rating spice, right? They might rate based on perhaps the level of kink in a book as opposed to it being maybe more vanilla sex. Perhaps the number of sex scenes that might make them rate it higher comparatively to these other categories I'll be talking about. How explicit those scenes are put into detail might change somebody's spice rating. And potentially also how long each spice scene goes on, because there is a certain Ali Hazelwood book, I will leave this spoiler free, but there is an Ali Hazelwood book that most people don't necessarily consider a spicy book, but there is one sex scene that goes on for an entire chapter.
And we love her for that.
Chapter. Yeah. And so some people consider that book very spicy because the spice scene is so long. And some people don't consider it very spicy because it happens near the end of the book and it's the only spicy scene in the book. So when I'm rating spicy books, I tend to rate them within whatever kind of category my brain puts them in. So are they traditionally published? Because those tend to not be as spicy as some of the KU reads you might find. And is it a smut book or is it a full novel of, like, I don't consider Fourth Wing smut, right?
No.
Like that book has a full plot line, fully fleshed out characters. It was not smut written for the sake of smut. So I tend to rate them based on whether or not it's a trad published book. I also rate romantasy differently than I rate a romance novel, right?
And that makes sense.
Those are different things. Yeah. Whether or not maybe something is a smut book on KU. So what's 1 through 5 for a book written for the sake of smut is not the same thing as a 1 through 5 spice rating scale for a romantasy novel.
Yeah. For example, The Never List is a romantasy book. And
exactly.
For romantasy, I do think it's quite spicy because majority of the plot is literally the point is for them to have sex and get to know each other intimately. So I was like, wow, this is pretty spicy because that's the plot, was the spice. But compared to a dark romance or a contemporary romance, I don't think it's necessarily spicier than that because I know there's closed door where you know what they're doing and it's implied, but you're not actually there. And then it's like, oh, are they just holding hands and kissing? Or like you said, graphic detail. And even so, there are some books that I have read where it's open door. You know what they're doing, but they come up with all these fluffy words on how to describe the experience. And sometimes it's very anatomically correct, or, you know, so it just really depends. And I know like a lot of people tend to use the chili peppers. So they're like, oh, it's a green bell pepper, or it's one chili pepper or two or whatever. But I personally have never done it that way. I'm just like, oh yeah, it has a couple spicy scenes, or it's a little bit spicy. I don't know. I don't know. Green chili pepper, I think to me would be, it's a closed door, you know, they're doing something, or it's only kissing and holding hands, like a YA. But I think the frequency of scenes and the length and how graphic it is would be what is like, if it's graphic, then I'm like, yeah, it's spicier, but then I would take it down a notch for a rating if it's the only scene, even if it's the craziest shit I've ever seen on a page. If it's the only scene in the book and it's only 3 pages long, I wouldn't say that that's a very spicy book.
No, I'm with you there. It's really a confluence of factors, and I think that's why it's so hard to see somebody rate a book on a chili pepper scale and then feel it matched that for you as well. Because I think some books you might line up perfectly with somebody, and then you'll read another book and it'd be totally different. And the difference might just be the type of kink that was in the book, or the words used to describe a scene, or like it really can be those little details that really change it for people. I'm sure we'll get into some examples.
Yeah. So when you are reviewing a book, you don't use a numerical scale at all. You just say like, there was this many scenes, or how do you tell others?
Yeah. So I don't typically, when I rate books, I don't ever tell people it's a 1 through 5 on the spice rating. I usually will just express to people the level of feralness of a book. I'll be like, this book is spicy and feral. And that usually means it's very spicy. You know, be careful if you're listening to an audiobook of what ears could overhear you. And this, again, is just a warning for people who listen to audiobooks in their cars. If you use your car speakers, people outside your car can hear you. You need to know that. There's too many people out there that still don't know that. And listen, if you're just proudly listening to your audiobook, that's fine. But, you know, if you're at school pickup, maybe you don't listen to that book right now. Like, be careful.
I actually have a story on that one.
Oh, no.
I was doing errands. I was driving and I was going past a school. I was listening to the graphic audio of A Court of Silver Flames, which of the series is the spiciest book. And I got stopped at a children's crosswalk. And like crossing guard stopped me, and I was like, oh no, because if I'm just driving by, I'm like, they're not going to hear anything. So I immediately had to like mute my car, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, they're going to put me on a list. Like, I was like, I'm not a freak like that. I'm so sorry. Because it, of course, just happened to be.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I can say the quote, but it happened to be an infamous quote.
I know exactly what part you're talking about, and anybody who's read that book will know. So
so I was like straight up panicking, like trying to muting it as fast as I could. So it does happen.
Yeah, but I will generally warn people if there's a level of feralness to the book that they should know about, because some people just don't like that in a book, and that's totally fine. And if you don't want spice in your books, or you want more of a closed door book, that's totally fine. Just don't tell me you want a clean book, because I hate that language, because that implies that books with sex are dirty, and that sex is dirty, and sex isn't dirty. So
you're just looking for closed door,
fade to black, or just, lower on the spice. That's totally fine. Yeah. But I tend to try to judge the spice based on how I know the person, and I'll kind of like give them a general idea of what to expect.
No, I definitely have some friends who prefer the fade to black and the closed door scenes. And so I can already tell them, they're like, oh, I'm seeing this book everywhere online. Would I like it? And I'm just like, no,
Yeah.
And I was like, I can tell you the scenes to skip if you need. But yeah, it is helpful if you know the person asking for the recommendation.
Yeah. And always, always, always check your trigger warnings before you read, especially dark romance.
Yes.
Always. All right. How would you rate the spice levels of these following popular books series? This is a rapid fire portion, so we're going to go quick. Lights Out.
I thought it was pretty spicy, but I think it's because it was really kinky, and it was my first experience, and probably will remain my only experience with dark romance.
That's fine.
I was like, she's doing what to the knife handle? Absolutely the fuck not.
Okay, not for Kinsey. I loved Lights Out. So for me, on a dark romance, I would say it's like a soft 4 out of 5.
Okay.
Okay, for more traditionally published, like Lights Out is considered like dark rom-com almost, like it's intended to be funny.
I couldn't handle the rom-com version.
It's totally fine. It's not for everybody. Okay, Bridge Kingdom, totally opposite of Lights Out.
Yeah, totally opposite. I mean, maybe like a 2.5 or a 3 for me if
I'm
I
right
was
there
to
with
put it
you.
on a numerical scale, because there weren't a ton of scenes in the beginning, but they were hot scenes once you got there.
Yes, very well written.
Deep End.
Oh, I love Deep End. Deep End is so good. I would say for what's considered just a contemporary romance novel, like a college romance novel, I would say that's a 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I'd say 4, maybe even a 4.5. I really enjoyed Deep End, and so did my
It is
husband.
so good. Lucas Bloomquist reigns supreme.
Yeah.
All right, Fourth Wing.
Ooh, okay. So this one's romantasy, but I feel like as far as romantasies go, I don't consider it spicy, but it does get graphic at times, especially like in Iron Flame. And those scenes are like a whole chapter. I feel like, I don't know, like a 3.5 or a 4. I don't know if that's like accurate, but
No, I agree with you. Like, especially if you look at Fourth Wing as a series, maybe not just the Fourth Wing individual book. As a series, I would say it's a 3.5 to a 4 in the standard romantasy category.
yeah. Wow, we're like same. Quicksilver.
Okay, so Quicksilver is where I say like it is the most feral, like going more traditional romantasy that I've personally ever read. Like if you're just thinking like standard romantasy, it is the most feral. I'd say it's like a solid 4.5. Like solid 4.5.
I was literally about to say the same thing. I rated a 4.5, especially Brimstone, like book 2 as well. I felt like it just kept getting spicier. I was like, oh God. Like,
Yeah.
listen, there's a reason that Kingfisher is both of our number 2s, or he's actually your number 1, tied for a number 1 spot.
He became my book husband. Yeah, he did become my book husband after Brimstone. Just saying.
Yeah, it's very feral, and the fact that it's a romantasy with a major plot, like outside of only the romance aspects, like it was pretty heavy in the spice, but it was pretty good. I enjoyed it.
It was good. It was great. Okay, ACOTAR series.
It's so vanilla. I'm sorry. The first time I had read ACOTAR, I remember like everyone's like, oh, it's just fairy porn and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's crazy. And then the first book, I was like, that was literally 2 paragraphs and half of that was just them kissing. So like the first book, I'm like, that's like a 1, if that. It's like, or a 1.5. But like I said, Silver Flames did get pretty spicy there. But even still, I'd be like a 3.5. Like, I don't know. I just don't think the whole series overall is very spicy.
I agree. I'd say like the overall series is like a 3 for me.
Yeah, a 3. Yeah. And I would only go like 3.5 on Silver Flames. It's just.
Yeah, agreed.
There's so many pages and so little smut in it. So.
Yeah. As a percentage.
Yes, of course. Throne of Glass. Now, I know you haven't finished the series.
I mean, where I was at in that series, it was like a half to a 0 or a green chili pepper.
Yep. It starts closed door. And I'm going to go on my quick little tangent here. If you're reading that for this spice, you are wrong. Whenever someone's like, okay, but does it have spice in it? I'm like, the door is over there. Please leave immediately. We don't read Throne of Glass for the spice. We read it for the emotional trauma. Okay. No, I would say it's like a 2.
We read it to cry.
Yeah. No, I'd say like a 2, maybe 2.5. I mean, for the series overall, there are certain books, I'm not going to say which ones, they can get a little spicy, but it's about equal to, I don't even know if it's like equal to Silver Flames. Probably like Wings and Ruin or Mist and Fury. We'll say Mist and Fury.
Good to know.
Yeah. So what is your preferred amount of spice? This could be limited to the number of scenes in a book or how graphic it gets.
Listen, I love a good amount of spice in a book if it's done well. I feel the connection between the characters and the partners. I think it can be done so well. And I think it just depends on like what I'm reading a book for. I would generally say, speaking Iron Flame, I think, is like a good amount of spice and aromacy for me. But
I
then I
agree.
feel like Quicksilver and Brimstone the hell out of those books, and it had considerably more spice.
Hmm.
So it really just depends. But I will say, I think Iron Flame was really well balanced.
I definitely agree. I think Iron Flame is like the perfect example. For me, I think I prefer like a medium level of spice. I'm not reading erotica or anything like that. I'm not actively seeking out spice, but I'm also not disappointed if there isn't any. I'm a big fan of slow burn. And so for me, I prefer the emotional connection and like getting edged over anything
Yeah.
else. And so like it's kind of like the reward in a way when you finally get that spice. But yeah, I don't know. I think like a medium level. I think I have to get out the story right now, and this is the perfect spot for it. But I grew up in a very strict religious household, so strict that during a certain vampire book, my mom read it before me and put tabs in to mark what was allowed and not allowed for me to read. And I had to skip a honeymoon scene. And then I remember like sneaking it and reading it as a teenager and being like, really? This? I couldn't read this. So it was just like very
Isn't
vanilla.
it still closed door?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like a fade
So-
to black.
I know. Yeah. So, but for me, like I enjoy the spice. I'm just going to say, but I'm not actively seeking it out. And
Yeah.
if it's just scene after scene after scene after scene, it kind of gets to a point where I'm kind of like, I'm not skipping it. I never do, trust, but I'm always like, okay, like, come on, let's get to the next part. Cause I do care about like, they're in war. What's going on? But yeah, I enjoy it. I think Iron Flame's perfect.
Yeah, I think of like a romantasy, which is I think where we spend a lot of our reading time. Iron Flame is just so well balanced, and so anybody out there hating on it, nah, we don't agree. We don't see eye to eye.
Nah. But even if I'm knowingly picking up a contemporary romance like Allie Hazelwood or something, I'm expecting it and I'm hoping it'll happen. But I'm also hoping that the characters have to mature and get to that point in the relationship before just going at it.
I'm sure we're going to talk about this later, so I will mention the book later. But there is a book I want to talk about where I think there's spice throughout the whole thing, and it's...
I think we're going to talk about that same book, girl.
Yeah, we'll talk about it, but I think it's actually done really well. I'll make my point on that later. Okay, everyone's favorite topic. What are some of the spiciest books you've ever read?
The book that you were about to talk about, Heated Rivalry. I'm pretty sure that's what you're about to talk about.
Yeah.
I learned a lot. I learned a lot from that book. And when I recommended it to my friend and then we watched the show together, I did pull out my anatomy textbook to explain to her how some of those things worked. But
okay, all right. I love like teacher Kinsey coming out to like
yeah, but I feel like it's pretty graphic. And the fact that there was a spicy scene in the literal prologue, it was the fastest book that I had read spice in. I was like, dear God, like we're just going for it right now. But it was the prologue, but it also was jumping forward in time. So that moment in time happens years later into their relationship, which is why I think, and you think, I'm assuming, it was done well.
Heated Rivalry is done so well because I think it proves something that a lot of people thought was impossible, which is that if the spice is up front, there's no good payoff. And I think that the payoff in Heated Rivalry is the emotional connection, and they have to work for it. And there is so much longing and yearning. And character development. Yeah, the yearning in that book is so good, despite the fact that there is intimacy up front. The intimacy comes first in that book. But Rachel Reed wrote a book where she's like, you can have that up front and not get the emotional connection that you want with somebody. And you can find that over time. And payoff in that book is so earned. It's so well done. It's such a beautiful love story. And I loved the fact that I had a book where I'm like, look, you actually can have spice up front and still have longing and yearning and feel like there's this emotional payoff you're waiting for and get that payoff. And so well done.
Yeah. I do think that's the spiciest book I've read because it was like right away and it continued throughout the book. But then you're like screaming, dying for the yearning and the emotional intimacy. And it's also graphic. So that's definitely my spiciest. What about you?
So I have read a lot of very spicy books on KU, whether they were smut for the sake of smut and they were just like fun, feral, fast read books that are like 200 pages, or spicier books like I would consider like Quicksilver like one of the spiciest romanticities I've ever read, / Brimstone. I think Brimstone's even spicier than Quicksilver. So spiciest books I've ever read. I think one of the spiciest books I've ever read as far as amount of content goes in a traditionally published book, I actually just read. It's called Willing Prey by Ali Oleander. And this book is based around like smut and kink. It's a very smutty, traditionally published book. And the main kink in it is like primal play, which you get to see at the end of Lights Out. It's like the very last scene in Lights Out, in case you're wondering what that is.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
So that's like the majority of that book. It was very spicy, but it was also a really fun read. I think one of the spiciest contemporary romances I've ever read was Deepened by Ali Hazelwood, as far as like a contemporary romance goes. But I think like the spiciest books I've ever read are always Omegaverse books. Those books are feral. They're so much fun to read. They have excellent found family. And if you like a why choose, there's so many options in the Omegaverse because so many of them are like built around like packs. So there's always excellent found family in them, but the spice is also excellent, and you usually get a variety when you go why choose.
Nice.
So it's usually an Omegaverse book. I didn't used to track my books on Storygraph. That's like a relatively newer thing for me in like the last year and a half. So unfortunately, I don't remember the titles of all the really spicy books I've read. So if you want a really spicy book and you're comfortable with Omegaverse triggers, look into that.
See, and I haven't read what you would consider a true Omegaverse, but another book that I did list here was Mate, 3-Day Sex Fest.
Yeah, basically.
It was
Those
incredible.
Usually exist. Those usually exist in an Omegaverse book as well, almost always. And like I said, there's why choose versions and non-why choose versions. The why choose versions are just extra feral.
Yeah, I remember after I had finished May, I had posted on Threads and said, I need someone to make me a sticker with this quote immediately. And somebody...
I was with you.
Yeah, and then someone did make it and they sent it to me, and they're not selling it, unfortunately, because it's not licensed and you can't sell things that aren't licensed, but they mailed it to me as a gift. And the quote was like, girls in heat only get what they ask for if they drink their water. And I was like, oh my gosh, girls, same, because water's my favorite drink. So
it really is. You are so good about drinking water.
My water is massive.
You're always reminding me to drink water because you're so good about it. And I'm so terrible.
Hydrate or dihydrate. But Mate, Heated Rivalry, Lights Out, Brimstone. Those are all pretty spicy for me. But I'm not like, oh my gosh, it's super, super spicy. I think truly the only book where I was like, oh my God, this is spicy, like really spicy, was Heated Rivalry. And I'm just not used to Lights Out. So for me, that's why. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and don't get me wrong, Lights Out is very spicy. But as far as like dark romance goes, it's like what you would consider like light dark romance because the main MMC is very much this like, I don't know how to say this without it not making any sense, but he's like a golden retriever stalker. Like, and don't get me wrong, like that's obviously like you read your trigger warnings before you read that book. I'm sure there's many people who would not find it funny and it would not be enjoyable for them to read. But he does get very obsessed with this character. He essentially starts stalking her, and I think mainly using social media. But he's also this like serious golden retriever type character. So he's a dichotomy. And I think that's what people really liked about him. But he's also very funny. So I think Lights Out, like if you haven't read dark romance and you're wondering if it's for you, I would definitely start with Lights Out. And if you're like intrigued, keep reading. If you're not, don't. That's totally fine. It's totally fine. If you laugh and giggle through Lights Out and just thoroughly enjoy it, then keep reading. If you're just like cringing constantly, it's just not for you. And that's totally fine. Kinsey, Lights Out not really for her. I had a great time reading Lights Out.
Did you read Ice Planet Barbarians? I hear that's another like really, really good spicy one.
Oh, I love Ice Planet Barbarians. It's so good. You know, she has another series nobody ever talks about. It's a Fire and His Blood series, but they're about dragon shifters. So I do love those series. Again, like read some trigger warnings on those. I do think that some people are uncomfortable with the level of consent that was in a couple of the books. I think it was specifically the very first Ice Planet Barbarians. There has been some discussion about that. So if you're curious about reading that book, but you're a little concerned about that, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to like give some more details and let you know if it may or may not be for you, like what you're looking for. But I do really enjoy those series. They're really, really fun. When I first read Ice Planet Barbarians, nobody had ever heard of it. Like nobody I knew was talking about it. It wasn't on Bookstagram yet. Nobody was like admitting to reading these books. And I read them and they are spicy, but they're very sweet love stories. So
that's good. That's good.
They're really fun to read. All right. And this is where we leave you today, Basic Book Besties. Thank you so much for listening. Please leave us a review and join us next week. As mentioned earlier, we have lots of upcoming content, including Fourth Wing deep dive topics, crash course season for the Massverse, author interviews, romantasy book recaps, discussions on some of our favorite contemporary romances, our thoughts on recent adaptations, and more.
You can join us over on Patreon, where you can access all of our episodes ad-free 3 days early and in full video, plus extras like exclusive book club access and shoutouts on the show. You'll find our Patreon link in the show notes, along with all the ways you can support the podcast.
You briefly heard us mention supporting our local libraries in our last episode, and in case you didn't know, here are a few ways you can do that. Check to see if your local library has a Friends of the Library program. It's an annual donation that can come with fun benefits like access to used book sales, and all proceeds go towards the library. I know Kinsey and I both support our Friends of the Library program.
I support multiple.
Too.
I support multiple.
Utilize resources available with your library. This helps them with funding. Donate books or any physical media they may be accepting donations for, like DVDs, CDs, and magazines. Volunteer for programs that need extra hands, and more. Reach out to your library to see how you can help.
Don't forget to stay in the loop by following us on social media and joining us in our Discord chat. Who knows, you might find your next book bestie there.
You can also check out our website, basicandbookishpod.com, for info about our upcoming seasons, our contact form, and more. We link that down in the show notes.
Prepare to be the diamond of the season when we discuss our Bridgerton Season 4 reactions. Until next time, reach out on Discord to let us know your spiciest book recommendation. See you there.
Oh, you know what I didn't even mention? The Lana Ferguson book that's like a secret monster romance. I think it's called Loch and Key, but Loch is like Loch Ness.
Oh, see, I had no clue.
I read that. I didn't know. It turns out it was a monster romance. There was an appendage I was not expecting.
An appendage. Oh God.
I didn't know. It was so good though. It was so cute and so funny.
Oh, I'm so glad.
It took place in Scotland. I think I really enjoyed it.